In common with other software, gCADPlus gives you the ability to place new entities into a drawing and to locate them based on the geometry of existing drawings. These tools to do that are known as entity snap tools, and they live on a toolbar. Let's float that toolbar now. So if, for the sake of argument, I wanted to draw a line from the midpoint of one part of this square to the other side, I could pick the line tool, pick osnap mid, and that would snap to the midpoint of that entity. You may notice that as long as I'm near the line, I don't have to be on it. The cursor will jump to the precise midpoint of the line. I can come across to the other side. I could also pick midpoint or pick perpendicular. That's another entity, or osnap, object snap, entity snap. The terminology varies a little from user to user, so we can pick. So now we've drawn a line. The blue line runs from the midpoint of one line to the midpoint of the other. We could repeat the line command and draw from this midpoint here and go again to the other midpoint, and we're done. Well, let's look at another entity snap. Suppose we wanted to put a rectangle or 4 paving bricks in here, as you see in the image on the right, and we'd use a custom tree guard in the center. What we want is a rectangle to sit in here of defined size. So let's imagine that these paving bricks here are 400 millimeters by 400 millimeters. So we'll use draw and rectangle, and we'll choose center, size and angle. The reason that I choose that is the prompt says specify center point, so we can pick the center point by the intersection of those two lines, and the cursor locks precisely on it. Now we're asked for the size. Now we would like to have, in this instance, 2 paving bricks across each 400. We could type 400, 400, but that would be absolute lengths. What we want is relative to that central position. So we're going to go out in the right direction, 400 by 400. Let's do it. We use the @ sign to represent relative lengths. So 400, 400, and enter. Now we're asked for a rotation angle. Let's zoom in. So how do we pick the rotation angle? We could have measured the rotation angle by selecting the line prior to this operation, but in this case we could use an entity snap. We could pick that intersection or use this option here, which is nearest. And nearest is a bit of a misnomer, because nearest just means I'm going to lock on, in this case, to the blue line, and as long as I run along or get near the blue line, gCADPlus will snap to that particular angle. So in goes. So we've used yet another one of these entity snaps. What I'm going to do is to explode the rectangle, which I need to do a couple of times. No, I'll only do it the once. Let me measure the length of one side. Notice that when I pick it, it's still a polyline, a square. If I use my distance command, the same entity snaps that we've been using can be used to precisely lock on to an endpoint. Notice the square to an endpoint again, and there was, I quickly did that rather too quickly. Let's repeat that distance from that point there and then to this point here. Will give us a distance of 800. So we've got 800 mil. Now what we want is a little paving brick to go in here. The tree guard will go in the center. So the snaps are used in every time we want to do things precisely. So we might want to create a block, a paving brick block. So we might want to pick the polyline command again and snap to an endpoint there, to an intersect there, to another intersect, and finally an endpoint, and right click and close filled. And because my drawing color was blue, the paving brick has been coloured blue. Let's change it to a colour that is a little more meaningful. So there's our paving brick. What I'm going to do is to turn that paving brick into a block. So I'll create a block. There's already one there because I've been rehearsing it. Let's call this one brick 2. And as a pick point, I'm going to snap to the end of that line where the first vertex of that polyline is situated, and we'll OK. So there's our block. What we want to do is select it, copy it. We can now, when we ask for a base point, I could now use this insertion point osnap. Click on it and pick, and then go to an intersect. So I'm copying one block from that position there over to there, using as a base point the insertion point of the block. The insertion point shows as we select it. We might take the opportunity now to pick both of those, copy them. Now you don't have to use your osnap to pick up that point. gCADPlus is smart enough to start there, and then we'll go to an end point there. And there are our paving bricks. We can't see them clearly, so let's edit the block, pick the filled polyline. We'll say we have a border, yes, and we'll give it a dark colour around the edge of the paving brick. Now when we close the block editor, and we can now remove these lines here, which were essentially construction lines, and we can erase them like so. So there are our 4 paving bricks sitting in the middle of a large area that's 4 metres by 4 metres, so 16 square metres there, with this little paving brick matching this area here. Now I could use the spline command to draw in the tree guard, but I don't see any point in doing that when I've got a nice image. So I can pick that image and move it out of the way, and I'll put a note to the effect that in the central zone there, cut into the paving bricks, as you see in the example here, a special custom tree guard will be placed. So you can see entity snaps here proving to be really, really useful. Well, let's look at some more of these osnaps that we haven't discussed so far. Here's a circle. If we select, whoops, I'm in the middle of the point command because I've put a point down at this point. That might represent a water supply. So we could run, we've got our drawing covered to blue. We could be on a layer called irrigation. We could be running an irrigation line from that tap running in this direction. The garden bed edging is not quite complete there, but we could run under that boardwalk area here to the centre of this group. So let's draw a line. I'll make the line a little bit heavier so that we can see it easily as it's being drawn. And for a point, I want to latch on to this point. Notice that as I zoom in, the point marker stays the same size. And a point is a node, so that's this 4th entity snap. So you can see I can latch onto that node. I might want to come across to the insertion point of this tree. Let's do that. To the insertion point of the next tree. And we want to go to the center point of the circle for this raised garden bed, and there we are, and we'll exit from there. So our water supply starts at a tap, runs near, fairly obviously near to this tree. It's a polyline, so it's pretty easy to move it. Actually, it wasn't a polyline, was it? It was a line, which enabled me to show you another one of these editing commands I've selected. That's a line segment. I should have chosen polyline, I chose line. If I now click onto find the end point of that line there, and then the end point of the adjacent line, can you see now the 2 lines have contiguous, same start and end points. So now they're now selected and I can join them. So I hope you can see that entity snaps are pretty handy when you are editing a drawing. I just noticed as I zoomed in, and I hasten to say I'm not the drafter here, you may be able to see there's a small gap down here. the rectangle representing some seating here doesn't precisely match the adjoining one. So I can click on, I can select it now, move. Where are we? Move. I'm going to move the selected entity from this as a base point to the end of the other one, now that we've got precise matching. So that's entity snaps. We're using them as single click entity snaps. It is possible via this tool here to set what are called running object snaps. So we could say one that we haven't yet dealt with is tangential. We'll run with tangential, endpoint and center all at the same time, and we'll turn object snap on. Now that I've done that, can you see you may be able to pick up a faint blue background to the 3 object snaps or entity snaps in operation. I'll change my drawing color so that we can see what's happening to magenta. Now let's zoom out a little, and if for the sake of argument, now I'm struggling for something sensible to say here, but let's imagine we wanted to run an electrical line from the perimeter of this circle here to the other one and tangential to it. We could say draw line. Now remember, we have 3 entity snaps operational, so I could come over here, see that it being gCADPlus jumps onto an endpoint. It as I get near the circle, it jumps to the center of this circle as well, and we should be able to, if we start the line, we can still use a single osnap. I'm going to choose a quadrant as a single osnap, quadrant being there are 4 quadrants to a circle. Now we've got tangential running, so we should be able to come over here, and now you'll see the tangential osnap showing. It's a little sort of diamond shape with a bar on top of it. So that now enabled us to draw a line from the quadrant of the lower circle tangential to the upper circle, and all 3 entity snaps were running at the same time. Now we do find a lot of gCADPlus drafters will run with their favourite entity snaps on all the time and just override them as I did then. Be very careful, especially when you are new to it, because the osnap toolbar is usually parked over at the side of the screen there. It's quite difficult to pick up which ones are in operation, and certainly when you are beginning you can clear all and even take osnap off there. I think it's important to be aware of the status of your osnap tools when you are drafting. But can you see that with proper application they will enable you to draw quickly and efficiently and accurately with gCADPlus.